And now we move on to Road to UFC 6 Abu Dhabi. If you guys don't know, after UFC 280, the day after UFC 280, you're going to be getting the semi-finals of a tournament that's happening right now, where there are a lot of Asian fighters are going to be fighting in a tournament to get into the UFC. The first round was hosted before UFC 275 in Singapore, and now the second round is going to be hosted the day after UFC 280 in Abu Dhabi, which is going to be awesome, man. I really cannot wait for these fights. If you don't know about them, there's some more fights for you to be excited about. There's 5 fights on this card. There's 5 fights on episode 5. So you got 10 more fights on top of the 13 fights I believe you get in at UFC 280 to look forward to. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be really exciting, and I really cannot wait for this card. And in my opinion, this card is a lot easier to predict than episode 5. But watch me completely mess it up and go really badly on my picks. But let's just get straight into it, man. You got Lukai taking on Jung Young Lee. And I'm going to be going with Jung Young Lee here. Jung Young Lee looked amazing in his road to UFC fight. He submitted Bing Ji, who once again is a Chinese guy that came on Dana White's Contender Series and lost a split decision, which in my opinion he won. And he just got submitted in the first round by Jung Young Lee after Jung Young Lee hadn't fought for about 3 years. Which is insane. Jung Young Lee, we didn't see much out of him. We haven't seen much out of him for years. But I know that he's got a good style, and I just believe that he can beat Lukai. You know what I mean? So, Lukai, I wasn't very impressed with this guy, like, whatsoever on the regional scene. I still picked... No, I think I lied. Sorry, I picked Anger Hans here to beat him. Because I was not... confident in Lukai at all. Lukai looked a lot better than I thought he would. He showed a lot of wrestling there, but I don't think he can do that against Jung Young Lee, who's got that really good grappling. He's going to be able to lock him up in some submissions, and I think even on the feet, Lee should be better as well. All like Lukai really has is a bit of power in the hands. He doesn't really have too much more. I'm really not high on this guy, and if he wins, I'm probably gonna pick against them again in the finals. I just don't really I don't understand Lukai's game too much, really. He hasn't really impressed me. I think Jung Young Lee should be able to win this one here. And I like him to win too. I think he's a great prospect. I think he's got a pretty good future in the UFC if he gets there. A lot of people picking Jung Young Lee by KO, which is interesting. I'm gonna go with submission. I think Lukai's gonna shoot for a takedown, and Lee's gonna get a takedown off his back, kind of similarly to what he did to Bing Z. With an armbar there. And if you look at the odds here, Jung Young Lee's minus 300, and I feel like that's somewhat accurate of how I see this fight. I think maybe the odds are a little bit too wide to play. I think it's maybe just something you sit back and enjoy. But I'm confident in Lee to beat Lukai in this matchup, man. I sound real negative, but that's just what I'm seeing. Another one here, Rinya Nakamura. This guy is something else, man. Rinya Nakamura is a really good prospect. He's only 5-0. He's good, and he's been fighting good opponents too. He debuted against a guy that's 1-1, that's fine. When he was 1-0, he fought a guy that was 5-4, that's fine. But then when he was 2-0, he fought this guy that was 5-1. And then when he was 3-0, he fought this guy that was 23-6. Like, this is absolutely insane. And he's also looking good on the feet as well, considering he's got a really crazy wrestling background. If you look here, he medaled at the Japan National Championships 3 times as a senior, claiming 1 silver and 2 bronze. And he's a 2017 Under-23s Freestyle Wrestling World Champion. And he also won a bronze at the 2011 World Championships in the Cadet Division. And he's a World Cup medalist. This guy's a really good wrestler, and he mixes it well, man. He mixes up well with the striking, because he's a really good striker as well. He's only been training MMA for about 1.5 years. Only been fighting MMA for 1.5 years. He's already fought 5 times. He beat Gugan Guzman in a fight where he was hitting the back of his head, so he was getting a little bit I think he got a point taken off him, actually. But he ended up submitting him in the first round, and I think he's going to be able to do the same to Shohei Noze. Shohei Noze, he's got really good submissions as well, so he's going to have to be a little bit careful of that, especially he's got this crazy submission by neck scissors. That's not a very common submission whatsoever, and we didn't see much of him, because when he fought Wiligi Burin, who is a former UFC fighter, by the way, you guys might not know that, but Wiligi Burin had a UFC run quite a few years ago, and I believe he went 0-3 before he got cut, so he actually doesn't have a UFC win. But this was his opportunity to get back into the UFC, and unfortunately he blew his knee out in like a clinch sort of situation, and Shohei Noze won by injury, so it is what it is. I'm picking Nakamura though, and I genuinely believe that Nakamura should get it done in the first round, or at least the first 2 rounds. This guy is amazing. This guy is something special, man. Rinya Nakamura, a really good Japanese prospect to keep your eye on. And if we look at the odds, do the odds represent my confidence? if I can even find him. Yes, they do. Rinya Nakamura is minus 500. Okay, maybe the lines are a little bit wide on that one, but I'm confident in Rinya. I really like him as a prospect. He's great. Now this next one here, Chika Aspirado, Saragi versus Wanbin Ki. Both of these guys, if we're being honest, they got a layup. They got a layup in their first round. They both won their fights. Wanbin Ki fought a guy that was 4-1, who took the fight on like 5 days notice, and I believe he was a weight class below, or at least he looked a weight class below, because Wanbin Ki looked massive against him. Wanbin Ki's 5'11", but he's a big 5'11" for 155. And before that, you know, he wasn't beating the best competition at all. But he's got a loss to Ray Yun Ok in there, which I don't think you can blame. I believe Ray Yun Ok went on to be a ONE FC champion. And I believe Ray Yun Ok also fought Eddie Alvarez. Am I correct in putting that tie in there? And Chika Aspirado Saragi fought Pawan Mansinj, who was a guy from India with a record where he wasn't really fighting the best competition. And once again, I feel like he looked like he was a weight class too high as well. I feel like he could really... maybe fit 145 if he toned down a little bit. So yeah, it was a weird fight. He won it obviously though. His one losses to Inga Hans, who lost earlier on in the series as well. I like Wanbin Ki to win this one. I like Wanbin Ki to win by knockout. All we saw Wanbin Ki do though was defend takedowns and defend submission attempts from Genosuke Kashimura, but until he knocked him out. I'm picking Wanbin Ki by KO here. I don't know why Tapology is so heavy on Saragi. I'm personally not seeing it. I think maybe it's the win streak, maybe it's the record. Wanbin Ki's a massive 155 though. This guy is huge, and these odds are wide. These odds are a little bit too wide, man. Wanbin Ki's minus 300. I disagree. I really disagree with Wanbin Ki being minus 300 in this matchup here. I don't see that at all. But I'm still picking Wanbin Ki anyway. Wow, I didn't expect the odds to be that wide. I haven't looked at the odds before recording the video, and that's very surprising. And now we've got Kyung Pyo Kim taking on Anshul Jabli. Anshul Jabli's 5-0 on the Indian regional scene, and trust that as much as you want, but he's looking good over guys that aren't that great. Like, they've got good enough records like 2-1, 5-4, 2-0, 5-4, and 4-0. But yeah, he got a bye in his first round fight as well, because I think his opponent missed weight and wasn't able to make the weight. So he got a bye, and now he's going to be fighting at 155 against Kyung Pyo Kim. He's pretty big. Anshul Jabli, he's 6 foot. Kyung Pyo Kim's only 5'9", so he's going to have a little bit of a height advantage, but he's got a reach disadvantage, which is interesting here. Kyung Pyo Kim knocked out Asakurabai Jimenez Biki. Sorry, once again, I said their name wrong, but Asakurabai was one of my picks to win the whole thing as well. He was 36-10, and he had fought good competition. He had wins over really good competition as well, and I thought that he was going to look good in this matchup. He lost to a guy that was 18-6 recently, but before that, he wasn't really fighting the best competition. It's a weird one, man. Like the thing is, I personally, at this stage, Indian MMA is still developing. I love what they're doing. There's a really great promotion there called Matrix Fight Night, which is doing great things for Indian MMA. I believe it's owned by a lot of Bollywood stars, so there's like massive production behind it. It's really good. It's actually really, really well made, actually. And maybe Indian MMA could grow because of that lone promotion itself, because they're doing big things, and also they're selling out these arenas with like thousands of people in them, and they come into the prelims. They come into the first fights. There's like at least 2,000 people in these little arenas that they're hosting, and they're showing up to the prelims. You know, like I like what Indian MMA is doing. MFN is doing for Indian MMA. I don't trust it though. I don't trust Jabli. I don't trust Jabli's wins. I'm gonna pick him, and that's the only reason. I feel like this is a fight which you should not bet. Stay well away from. I don't like putting money on this fight whatsoever. And where are the lines? Anshul Jabli's plus 190. I don't mind the underdog actually. Now that I've said that, Kyung Pyo Kim minus 240. That's a bit wide. That's a little bit wide for my liking, man. I'm still gonna pick the favorite in this fight. Gyan Sequeira versus Samanda Muradov. I'm going to make this be known here. This is a short notice fight, especially for Samanda. It is short notice for Gyan Sequeira, but it's especially short notice for Samanda. I would say it was only like 2 weeks ago that Gyan Sequeira announced that he's going to be signed to the UFC. And I thought he was getting signed to the UFC, but it turns out he was getting signed to fight on road to UFC. And he was given a different opponent. I believe it was a Chinese opponent he was meant to fight against, but that fight ended up falling through. So now he's going to be fighting against Amanda Muradov, who's taking this fight, I want to say, on like a week's notice, maybe a week and a half's notice. Like, he hasn't been fighting, hasn't been given too much notice for this matchup here. The pick is Amanda Muradov. We've got a couple of reasons behind it. Yan Sequeira hasn't fought for over 3 years. Like, he is beating good competition with a really good 18-4 record. You know, like, you can't really complain there, but he hasn't fought for 3 years, which is interesting. Amanda Muradov, you know, he's 23 years old. He's fought 5 times in the last 3 years. He's beaten really good guys. Maxim Shevitz is a great win to have on AMC Fight Nights Global. He beat an undefeated guy at Eagle FC who's 10-0. 3-2, 1-3, like, he wasn't fighting the best guys, but then he fought this 10-0 guy and this 19-3 Maxim Shevitz. He's 23 years old, man. And they both got a very similar game, except in my opinion, the difference between the two games is that Amanda Muradov's got much better cardio and he can make these fights last 3 rounds. I feel like Yan Sequeira, he kind of gasses out early. If he doesn't get the submission early, he doesn't look as good in the second and third round as he did in the first. You know what I mean? I feel like he's got potentially a gas tank problem taking this fight on short notice as well. Maybe Amanda Muradov's gas tank doesn't look like it should, taking this fight on short notice himself. But I really do think Amanda Muradov should win this matchup here. I'm gonna pick finish, but in the 3rd round, and I think he's gonna get signed off it too. I feel like the UFC wants this guy in the UFC. The UFC probably wants a lot of guys out of Tajikistan in the UFC because they've got a very loyal following. People from Tajikistan support their fighters like nothing else, and I feel like it's gonna be something that UFC is gonna try and capitalize on. I'm picking Muradov to win this one here. Sequeira only being picked 8% by Tapology and those 36 votes is a little bit disrespectful. I don't know if there's odds out for this fight. I don't think that there are. There aren't. But if Muradov ends up being like some sort of crazy wide favorite, I do want to emphasize the fact that this guy has taken the fight on about 1 to 1.5 weeks notice, around that, and Yan Sequeira has taken the fight on probably like 2 to 3 weeks notice. I know it's not that much difference, but Sequeira has had a longer period of time to prepare for this matchup, and Muradov has taken it on somewhat short notice. So just letting you guys know that that's kind of the situation behind that fight. But I'm picking Muradov. They both got similar grappling game plans. I think that Muradov's got the better gas tank, and I think he's going to be able to make it last 3 rounds, where Sequeira probably won't. So, yeah, there was another fight that was meant to happen, Long Zhao versus Felipe Lima. It's been cancelled, but I'll talk about it anyway. I was picking Felipe Lima to win this fight, actually. I like Long Zhao. I like him as a prospect. He's only 24 years old, but I kind of want to see him fight on the Chinese regional scene a little bit more. I know he's had 31 pro fights, but he hasn't fought anyone decent again. And once again, it's almost one of those situations where where is it? On Dana White's Contender Series, I believe he fought to a pretty close competitive decision. Kristen Canones did win that fight. Long Zhao didn't look bad. It was a fight where I believe Canones was a big favourite in as well. It doesn't have odds here, but he was 80% picked anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna be picking those fighters. I'm gonna be picking Zhang Young Lee with a lot of confidence, Brinya Nakamura with a lot of confidence, Won Key with not much confidence. I think the line's a little bit too wide on that one. Kyung Po Kim with not much confidence. Once again, think the line's a little bit wide there, and Amanda Muradov with a little bit of confidence, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what the odds are. If Amanda Muradov opens up as some sort of ridiculous like -400, -500 favorite, I do not mind picking, but betting maybe Yan Sequeira, because he's had more preparation time. They've both got very similar games. Sequeira's got a good submission game. He hasn't fought for 3 years. You don't know. He might look a lot better than he has in the regional scene. But yeah, that's my predictions for Road to UFC. Really looking forward to it. There's some extra fights, 10 more fights on top of the 13 fights that we're getting on UFC 280. Cannot wait for it. It's going to be very, very exciting.